late winter of 2023.
So it'll be there long enough that we can all jump in there.
Absolutely.
And just real quick, what are we going to see?
You're going to see some really cool art by a local guy. It's very similar to a lot of other Western artists like C.M. Russell. So Jesse Weininger, he was born and raised here. He grew up here. He worked as a cowpuncher, kind of in that lifestyle for his whole life, is my understanding. He was also a World War I veteran, and he did attend the Art Institute of Chicago for a short time, but he came back home before he graduated because he told his friends that instead of painting a bust of George Washington, he'd rather paint a bust of a cowpuncher. And that's what he did. His art was really focused on kind of Western personalities and cowboys. And most of the pieces we have are on loan from various folks in the region, and it's really interesting to see how his work progressed. There's a couple of his really early pieces, and then there's a couple that were completed not too long before he passed away, which I think was in the late 1950s, if I remember correctly. And you can really see a progression, how his work changed and improved.
Well, Sylvia, just one more question. If someone out there is looking to volunteer, maybe they've got a skill that they would like to volunteer for your Living History Day, what do they need to do?
Stop in or give us a call, by all means. But also have a little bit of patience with us, because quite often we are kind of running from one thing to the next, and maybe, and I'm really talking about myself here more than the other girls, but sometimes I feel like I lose my efficiency on like getting back to people. So if you stop in and it seems like a cool place and there might be a fit, we might ask you to come back in a month or two when maybe things have kind of regulated back down to more normalcy, and then we can kind of sit down and see what fits. Some people are really great, working at the front desk and visiting with all of our travelers. Some people are really great at working in collections, especially if they kind of like to have their own space and maybe a quiet place. So we do try to find what might fit best, and come check out the museum and visit with us and let us know what you're thinking.
Sylvia, thank you so much for giving us a call this morning and coming on the show. It is always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
When we come back, we will talk with Dr. Thomas Bennett, who is running for coroner of Sheridan County. This is Public Pulse on 930 KROE and 103.9 FM. Sheridan.
This is Eric Jacobson, partner at Eliason Financial. I think we can all agree that living and working in Sheridan, Wyoming is an absolute privilege. At Eliason Financial, we support our community through volunteerism, philanthropy, and making a positive economic impact. To learn more about who we are and what our wealth management advisors can do for you, visit Eliason Financial online or call 307-672-3010. Securities offered through Royal Alliance Associates, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC.
Having your own business can be overwhelming. Parker Mellinger can make your life easier with payroll preparation, accounting, and tax services. Our fixed price agreement is set according to your needs and features unlimited phone calls and meetings for one monthly fee. Choose only the services you need, and we will tailor them to fit your business. Call today to see how we can provide you with cost-effective solutions. Parker Mellinger, 1811 South Sheridan Avenue in Sheridan.
The rodeo is part of who we are. It's our history, our identity. But boy, this is not your granddaddy's rodeo anymore. The YO is bigger, better, and bolder. Larger purses, tougher competition, and a whole lot of family fun. Come for the World Champion Indian Relay Races, high-stakes BRCA action, and a warm welcome unlike anywhere else in the world. You gotta be here to feel it. Get your tickets at SheridanWyoRodeo.com.
I'm Michelle Hart from Cody, Wyoming. Last year, my husband Tim was on a wildland fire down in New Mexico, and he was injured parachuting into the fire, and he unfortunately passed away 9 days later. Shortly after he died, I actually went to DC and asked to meet with Liz. We had a very intense and emotional conversation about these issues. Liz was really surprised when I was telling her about the issues of homelessness, pay disparity. She really wanted to do something about that. Those words were followed up with action. I just really enjoyed of getting to work with her and having her supporting Tim's Act in the House, and really pushing and putting pressure on legislators to be able to do something to fix these issues that are really critical to the public safety. She's a true fighter on their behalf, and I look forward to continuing to get to work with her until these issues are fully resolved. And I know I have her commitment in doing that.
I'm Liz Cheney, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Liz Cheney for Wyoming.
The City of Sheridan Weed and Pest Division would like to announce that mosquito fogging will continue through the mosquito breeding season. Fogging will take place Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings when necessary. For more information to report heavy concentrations of mosquitoes or to request that your home be in a no-spray zone, please call the mosquito hotline at 307-655-8297 or visit the website at sheridanwy.gov.
Are you a weekend warrior battling a nagging injury? Whether it's biking, hiking, backpacking, or seasonal yard work, don't let those aches and pains become something more. This is Charlotte Walter, physical therapist with Wyoming Rehab. We can help you feel better and get in shape for all of your upcoming endeavors. Give us a call and we'll set you up with a free screen and treatment recommendation for your non-emergent pains. Sheridan Memorial Hospital's Wyoming Rehab, 674-1632.
Good morning and welcome back to Public Pulse, brought to you by Eliason Financial. I'm Floyd Whiting. The Sheridan County coroner works with law enforcement agencies and death scene investigations to determine the cause of death as accurately as possible and make date, time, and location records pertaining to such a death. More than 80% of U.S. coroners are elected. And joining me this morning is Dr. Thomas Bennett, running for coroner of Sheridan County. Good morning, Dr. Bennett.
Good morning.
Now, we'll just jump right into the questions. Could you tell us about your upbringing? Where were you born and how did you come up?
Well, I'm an old farm kid out of southeast Iowa. Grew up about 35 miles from Iowa City.
Corn country.
Oh, totally. And the entire state of Iowa varies 600 foot from the highest to the lowest spot.
Wow. Not a lot. Not a lot.
This is overkill out here for me, so I love it. But Mom was a school teacher, Dad was a farmer, and the one thing they always stressed was education. So my two sisters and I all went on and got our advanced degrees, and I wound up doing pathology and then forensic pathology.
What do your sisters do?
My older sister was a PhD. She was down at the Missouri State University now, but back then it was University of Missouri in southwest corner in Springfield, and taught in the textiles and clothing and that area. My kid sister put in 35 years of teaching.
Oh, admirable.
Yeah. All the women in my family were educated, and they were all teachers, except for a couple nurses and other ones.
That's fantastic. Now, where were you educated? Walk us through your education, because to get to your level, you've gone through quite a bit of training.
You know, it does take years, but it's one of those things where you're training as you're working, so you just keep evolving all the way through. After high school, I went to Drake University in Des Moines and got my bachelor's degree there in 2.5 years. And then I went off to medical school at the University of Iowa and got my MD there way back in 1978. Once you finish your MD, though, you have to go off for training in residency in whichever specialty, even family practice, at least 3 years of that. I first went off and learned to be a hospital pathologist. So the guy in the white coat that runs the laboratory, I got trained in that, but got bored in that. So I decided I better try something that was more to what I like, the investigative nature of forensics. So I took an extra year. So after medical school, I had 5 total years of residency and fellowship training.
Oh, wow.
And then in 1983, I was eligible to take the test from the American Board of Pathology, the only certifying agency. But if you pass that test, you are therefore board certified, or recognize that you've met their standards. And right now, then, I've wound up being the only board-certified forensic pathologist in the state of Wyoming.
Holy cow, really?
Yeah, there's only about 300 or 400 of us around the whole country. So
wow.
No pun intended, but we are a dying breed. We're not training enough to make how many are retiring.
Now, I don't mean to get off track, but is there a reason for that?
Yeah, several good reasons. One is it's not the most, sometimes what we deal with can be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Whether it's the darkest side of death, the hardest side of abusive injuries, what people do to each other is disgusting sometimes.
Yeah.
And so that's not that attractive. The hours aren't very good. People don't seem to die on a convenient schedule.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way.
So you could be up 2, 3 in the morning on average. I mean, depending.
Exactly. Fortunately, I only need about 3 or 4 hours sleep a night, so I do pretty well on that. But and the other part of it is when we do our work, we have to go in the courtroom, which is one of those mixed blessings. It's one of the hardest places to be because doctors are used to being the expert.
Yeah.
We say something and people say, "Oh, thank you, doctor. That's wonderful." Not in the courtroom. You have to prove everything. You have to have the scientific literature behind you. You have to have the background and the basis to make a good scientific opinion.
You got to really defend
You do.
your choices and your rulings, or not your rulings, but your findings.
Your findings, exactly. And be able to bring in the scientific literature,
Yeah.
which is constantly evolving. So you have to keep up with it all the time. But every day is a new puzzle. So it's the best of all worlds for me. I still love it. I've been at this well over 40 years, and I still find the human body amazing.
Now, what got you into it? I mean, like you said, sometimes it's one of the darker sides of a medical practice. So when you look at it, when you were deciding what you wanted to do, what was it that really clicked and you were like, you know what, that's the service I want to provide?
Well, I can go way back to even with my dad. My dad being a farmer, Iowa farmers, we raised cattle, we raised hogs and corn and soybeans and hay and all that stuff. And by and large, the farmers can't afford to go to a veterinarian for everything. So most things they'll treat themselves. And as the only son, Dad would get me up at 3 a.m. and say, "Tom, we got to go pull a calf." Or, "Tom, we got to get out there and, that cow's gone down. We have to get her back up here real quick." Or the calf is freezing out there because the cow dropped the calf in the middle of a blizzard somewhere, and we have to go out and find them. And so you get used to it. Then it got to the point where I was in medical school, I had a young family, and I was broke. Now, back then, they would pay us for blood or other body fluids if we wanted to sell them. They've quit all that now pretty much. But to support a young family, a pathologist up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 30 miles from Iowa City, hired me to do the autopsies for him, taught me how to do them, and hired me to do them. So I went around eastern Iowa and did the autopsies for $75 a piece.
Wow.
And back then, that was big money.
Yeah.
But,
now there's no way that would happen.
Oh, heavens, no.
Yeah, but back then, that was good.
Yeah, it was good. And so doing those cases, I learned, and he taught me. He was a wonderful teacher. And that's how I got going.
Wow. And now, what are you doing right now for a living, for those who might not know?
Oh, I am primarily a consultant. Wyoming has a coroner system. As you said in your great introduction, you covered it very, very well. We have 23 counties and basically 23 different systems. The coroners can do the investigation, but in Wyoming, for a coroner to sign a death certificate, they need to consult with a physician unless they're a physician themselves. And that means a MD or a DO, a treating physician. A dentist can't do it. So it's important for them to consult with them, and I'm the physician they consult with. When they ask a question, they'll give me a call. They say, "Here's what I've come up with so far. We have the who, where, and by what means figured out pretty well, but what do you think is the medical part of it?" So what I'm doing right now is serving Wyoming as that consultant. I've got, like I say, the majority of the counties work with me on the edges of the state, like down around Cheyenne, Laramie. They work very closely with the folks in Loveland, Colorado, because it's a huge state.
Yeah, they've got a lot of folks down there.
And I'm so glad they do, except they're just losing one of their forensic pathologists who's a dear friend of mine moving down to Texas. So, like I say, we're moving away. There are fewer and fewer of us around. Western Wyoming used to go over into Idaho quite a bit, but they lost their forensic pathologist, so now I'm getting part of Idaho.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just serving as the consultant. If they have a question with anything forensic, whether it's law enforcement, EMS, coroners, whoever, they give me a call. And then if it needs an autopsy, I perform the forensic autopsy.
Now, why did you make the decision to run for Sheridan County coroner? Where did this choice come from?
P.J. Kane told me one day I was going to run. And, it's one of those where I've done it before. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, I was effectively the coroner for Polk County, Iowa, which is Des Moines. And I was the state medical examiner back in Iowa at that time, too. I was functioning as the primary investigator as well as the gentleman doing the autopsies, too. That was crazy. I never slept during that time.
Wow.
But what I did, I learned how to do it, to work with the families, work with the various agencies to help get a solid, defendable cause and manner of death ruling. What I did here in Sheridan County was I've been working with various counties around Wyoming, setting up new offices. For example, Basin, Wyoming, Bighorn County, has built a new facility about 4 years ago, and it serves as the regional center for the Basin. So Cody, Worland, Hot Springs counties, they all work basically out of Basin. I can be the pathologist, and those coroners work together. I'd like to see that done here in Sheridan. What I'd like to do is with the new office that's being built, the commissioners, bless their hearts, have committed to it. We're going to have ourselves a new facility because we want to transition from a funeral home-based coroner system to an independent coroner system working as a resource for law enforcement, for EMS, for others, for the hospital, for the whoever has a case like this. And I'd like to be the one to set it up.
Yeah, that would be, sounds fascinating.
It is.
Now, what are the primary duties of coroner for Sheridan County? If we get specific down to what exactly you will do on a daily basis.
We know the statutes of Wyoming spell it out very clearly. You have to determine who, by what means, and where a person died. I compare it better to, your old training in journalism. What do you have to cover with every single journalism
Oh, the
article?
5 W's. Got to get them all.
Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I tell all the coroners, I say, if you can't answer those questions without an autopsy, get an autopsy. If you can't answer them without more investigation, do that investigation. But you have to scientifically establish who, what happened to them, when did it happen, where did it happen, and then also the manner. It's a very easy way to go through it.
Absolutely. Now, what do you feel are good qualities for a coroner to have?
Thick skin.
Yeah.
But also with COVID, I lost my sense of smell. That's been very handy to have also here. But beyond those two things, I would expect them to be caring, but also with the families. Okay, imagine you have just lost a loved one. At that point, you're going to have to say, well, what do I do now? I don't know about a funeral home. I haven't thought about this. The coroner needs to go to them saying, folks, here's what I need to do. I need to do an investigation. I need to do an autopsy. I'll give you all the results. I'll tell you about them afterwards. Go through and I'll answer all your questions. All you have to do right now is to just know that I'm going to take your loved one to the coroner's office. They will be secure. We'll examine them to do whatever investigation necessary. When you choose a funeral home, we'll release it to you. I'm trying to work real closely with our funeral homes, all 3 of them here in Sheridan, as well as, you coming from Buffalo. You know Dave down at Harness Funeral Home well. And folks, they go all over the place anymore. And also Sheridan's a big draw for people from out of state. Help them get to the proper funeral home that they choose, working with them as expeditiously as possible, but also make sure that when I sign that death certificate, it is defendable, supportable with everything we have for that family afterwards. They're going to have to settle the estate. So I need to do the proper tests to get them to do that. It may involve toxicology, may involve an autopsy, may not, but help that family through that time.
Yeah, one of the things I always really thought about was I have a friend who worked down in funeral homes in Arizona for a little while, and it got to her. She only did it for a couple of years, like you said. You really have to kind of have thick skin and be able to work through some really tough issues with a family who's grieving. Now I've got about 2.5 minutes left. I want to give you 2 minutes, to talk to the voters of Sheridan County.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, again, my name's Tom Bennett. I'm running for the coroner for the basic goal of trying to help set up a new office with everything I've learned after 40 years of practice. I'd like to have it set up to where it's independent. I'm working with all 3 funeral homes closely as I can because I need their help and cooperation. I'm working with the ambulance service. Chris down there at the ambulance service is going to help us in case we need transportation. I'm trying to get this to be a real cooperative effort involving law enforcement. They're welcome at the autopsies. When someone attends an autopsy, they get continuing education credits. My teaching at the autopsy is worth 2 hours of credit for anybody who is attending it. It's free. It's the best bargain you're going to get for continuing education around the country here. But it also, I compare it to the sign over the office of the New York City Medical Examiner's office in Manhattan. It says, "Let conversation cease, let laughter flee. This is where death delights to help the living." Make your death mean something.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, because that's really what you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, Dr. Bennett, I want to thank you for coming in today and speaking with us, and all my best in the upcoming election.
Well, we're going to have our little debate tonight and stuff in the YO Theater, and I was telling you before, it's like me being in the courtroom, it's much easier up on the stage in the YO Theater and stuff. It's going to be kind of nice to look out and see everybody.
See a lot of smiling faces instead of people scowling out there.
Oh, yeah, exactly, who are wanting money about something and that. Much better here.
All right, you've been listening to Public Pulse on 930 KROE and 103.9 FM, Sheridan.
This is Eric Jacobson, partner at Eliason Financial. I think we can all agree that living and working in Sheridan, Wyoming is an absolute privilege. At Eliason Financial, we support our community through volunteerism, philanthropy, and making a positive economic impact. To learn more about who we are and what our wealth management advisors can do for you, visit Eliason Financial online or call 307-672-3010. Securities offered through Royal Alliance Associates, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC.
This is Renee Botten. I'm running for re-election as Sheridan County Clerk of District Court. By now, you may have seen that my opponent is running negative ads against me. Now I kind of know how President Trump felt. I can assure you that the District Court Clerk's office is being run competently, efficiently, and correctly. My opponent is hoping to pull you away from the truth, which is that I am the most qualified candidate. Don't fall for her deceptions. Vote Renee Botten for Sheridan County Clerk of District Court. Paid for by Renee Botten.